All right, greetings all. It's Max, and we're back. And today we are going to be talking a little bit about Bitcoin and investing, and some people wondering about how to do it and get involved in it. And how to get set up to where you can actually buy some, because obviously it's going up. But mention this again as we'll pull up Bitcoin here. Of course, everyone, you guys know that I've been in Bitcoin for probably, I don't know, not that long, since November, maybe. I don't even think that far. January, something like that. Anyways, back just 4 months ago, it was half the valuation. Okay, so I didn't get in that soon. It was something like 40 something thousand, right around there, something like that. And rode this right down here where it went up, and then it went down to right here. And in here I said, probably a good time for you guys who want to get involved into Bitcoin. It's in its dump. So it's probably a good time to buy. And then she went back up to around 60,000 again. And then it settled in right here. And then I'm like, okay, well, you got about a week. You got about a week to get in at 50. And then it's been staying at around 60,000 for about the last 6 weeks. And now it's on the trek upward again to 62,000. So you would have put in a grand in here at 45,000. You'd have probably you'd have $1,300 instead of a grand right now. It's like a 20 to 30% gain from 44,000. Where are we at down here? It was around 44,000 to now it's 62, and it's just going to keep going up. Now, this is not really a money thing, though, what I'm talking about with Bitcoin, and that the reason that, I think people should be involved in Bitcoin is not simply for the monetary thing. Like here it says in the last year, it's gone up by 800%. Well, it's gone up 200% every single year since it started. If you look at the all-time here, it wasn't really listed anywhere until it was around $100, and then up she goes, right? And then as people become aware of it, now I think right here it's listed on an exchange, so actually people have access to it like a Coinbase, where it's very easy to purchase. And of course the price skyrockets. And what happens here, it once goes up to 17,000 and goes back down to like 3 or 4,000 here. Well, what happens here is all these people that for the last 4 or 5 years have been building up Bitcoin and buying it in all these weird places, for $20 a Bitcoin, or 30 or 50 bucks a Bitcoin, or even $100 or $400 a Bitcoin for all these years, for these 3, 4, 5 years, right? Then when the price finally hits 16 to 20K here, almost 20K, then a lot of those people sell out. And so the price falls. All those people took profit. They made their money, and then they got out of the market. This happens quite a bit. You see this in a lot of especially altcoins that are kind of just pump and dump scams. But this one's not a scam. This one, you can tell, exactly where that money came from. All those years of people collecting and holding. These people probably made so many millionaires right here when Bitcoin went up and hit 20,000. All these people who just been collecting and collecting and holding and holding and holding. And because even though it was growing at 200% a year, because Bitcoin was worth so little, going from $100 to $200 a share isn't that big of a deal. Not like going from $1,000 to 20,000, right? So this is what happens, and this is in 2018. And then they call it just the big crash and the big wipeout. And it's like, well, a lot of the people who got in early, they sold out because they don't know what Bitcoin is. They don't know the vision behind Bitcoin and what it was designed for and what it's all about. So they sold out, and that was, there's nothing wrong with doing that. They made a lot of money. But now people are catching on that this was supposed to go to zero. Bitcoin here was supposed to die, right? But it didn't. And we kept on going and going and going for more years, and the price kept increasing. And now, of course, it's parabolic because this is where the investors come in from the big companies and grayscale investing firms, where instead of down here, it's all retail investors. Retail investors are people like me and people like you and just people who throw our lunch money at something to try, and either make a buck or have a little investment or, just like a stock or something. And then over here is we get Grayscale come in and saying, I want to buy $100 billion worth of Bitcoin. And you got Elon Musk, I want to buy $80 billion worth of Bitcoin. And you got big players in here. What else is happening? Well, the Bitcoin is running out. They can only mine, they can mine a whole bunch, but it's set to only be released every 10 minutes. So there's a limited supply of Bitcoin being released, and there is an ultimate cap on Bitcoin at 21 million Bitcoin. So the price is going to go up and up and up. But this isn't like, obviously with the price at $62,000, this isn't something you put your money into to try and get rich quick. Right? You're not going to put $500 into Bitcoin and then by the end of the year come out with 500,000. It's just not going to happen. 10 years down the road, 5 years down the road, probably 5. It might be $600,000 Bitcoin, maybe. Okay, but really what this is a store of value. Since its inception, it says here it's gone up 60,000%. And Bitcoin is not alone in this. A lot of cryptocurrencies are like that, but the only one that anyone should ever look at getting, especially if you're brand spanking new to crypto and you just think, it's maybe a good idea, just Bitcoin. Just Bitcoin. Everything else is crap. Okay, just Bitcoin. If you want to play the markets, if you're a stock, if you enjoy playing with stocks and that sort of thing, then look at altcoins. But no, just go Bitcoin and hold it. You buy it and you hold it. Just like if you were buying gold, just like if you were buying silver, you buy it and you hold it. Reasons for this. Okay. Now the economy's the American economy is all based on fraud. All right. So what that means is all of these companies, your insurance companies, the credit card companies, all real estate companies, the banks are all engaged in printing money out of thin air, out of nothing. And you go to the bank and you want to go buy a house for $300,000 and you want to take a loan out from the bank for $300,000 to buy your house. And the bank says, oh, sure. And then they give you your loan and off you go to buy the house. And then you pay them money, right? To pay them back the $300,000. Well, the bank never had the $300,000 to begin with for the house. They just had ones and zeros. They never had a hard asset, right? They didn't have $300,000 in cash in their vault. They had nothing. So like I said, that is just one example of how our economy is based on fraud. And it's been like that for a long time and people like it. It works, whatever, fine. But eventually the whole Ponzi scheme of fraud has to collapse. And, there are some ideas that it's being intentionally done, whatever the case may be. But now we're printing trillions and trillions of dollars to try to get into, bankrupt the middle class and the small businesses, of course, and get everyone shopping at Amazon and all the CIA places. We understand this. And part of that process, of course, is taking out trillions upon trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars in debt. Now, what happens when they do that? Why can't they just keep printing money and sending us a check for $1,000 every month to keep us all, happy, right? Well, when you have this great supply of money and nobody really manufactures or does anything in this country to really warrant any money, you have inflation. Okay, so it's really nice that if they increase the minimum wage to $15 an hour and they give you UBI on top of that and free health care and all that, well, where is the actual money being made to actually pay people for anything? It's all just created out of thin air. And that's more of a problem with other countries. As long as they're happy to deal in the dollar, we're fine. But even in America, I've been complaining about this, and the reason that I bought a lathe and getting into woodworking is you look at the commodities, right? The federal government's going to say inflation is like 2%, which is ridiculous. It's laughable. The inflation is 2%. Well, why does a house cost 30% more than it did last year? Why is lumber? We're looking at the deal for lumber here. It used to be $330 for 1,000 yard or whatever the the metric is for that. Basically means that a 2x4 costs you about $1.75, $2, something like that. And this is 1 year ago, right? And then pow, right? We're up to 200% all of a sudden. All right, you can see I'm on the 1 year timeline here. We're up to 200%, and then it shot back down for whatever reason. But then we're still at 200%, and we're climbing, and this is February of this year, right? And now here we are where we are right now in April. 269% more expensive lumber than what it was last year. 269%. So that $2 2x4 to build a house, construction lumber we're talking about, now costs $12. Okay? That is, so you build a new house. It's going to be that much more, 269% more just for the materials that are made out of construction lumber, like your plywood, like your 2x4s, like your 2x10s, your prefab roof rafter things, whatever. Okay? No one's talking about that for inflation. Okay? Now we're going to look at our meat and our live cattle, and we're going to look at the same thing. This is June last year, 4/29 last year. So the end of April was an all-time low for whatever reason last year for meat products. Probably because this is when they were closing down all of the places that were meat processing, and they had all this meat they had to get rid of really, really quick, more than there was customers. And then after that, of course, it shot right up, and it's on a steady incline. So we're 35% more expensive for beef this year, or right now, than it was a year ago. Actually, in a year ago, it's way more than that, but we'll just go from right here. And I see it. I see it when I go to the grocery store. I can only get crappy steaks, and they're still like $15 a pack, right? There wasn't any chicken on the shelves when I went to go buy chicken. This is where you're seeing this money printing. All right. Now, this is nothing. There's nothing. It's not like you can work harder to get out of this situation where the money that you have in your pocket or the money that you have in your savings account is just being basically stolen because of these inflation rates. The more dollars they print, the less your money is worth. Now, we're going to look at a big one that's going to affect everything in the grocery store. Everything in the grocery store. We're from corn country here in Minnesota. We provide food for the world. I think we provide like 80% of the world's corn supply in the what's called the grain belt. All right. We feed China. We feed Mexico. We feed a lot of these places with our corn. All right. And corn starch goes in everything. Corn even goes in your gasoline. All right. So we'll take a look and let me line this up here. So as you can see, the old chart here, whatever its metric is 3.71 per whatever they are measuring. It doesn't really matter as what it was. Actually, that's a couple of years ago. We'll go right here in 2020. 3.89 is where it was. Yeah, in 2020, it was 3.44. It readjusted my graph. So, okay, we're at 3.44 per bushel or whatever they're measuring it. I'm not sure what the metric is here, but 3.44 is the number we're looking at. And this is us today. We are at 5.80. Okay, so this says it's a 62% for the year, but we just looked at it and like 3.5 to going up to 5.7. Yeah, I suppose that's a 60% increase. You're going to see this on every product in the shelf. Every product, just about, if you go in anything that's prepackaged food, has got cornstarch in it. Okay? This is where you're going to see, what's happening to your money. Your Netflix subscription may not change. Your Amazon payments may not change. The stuff that's from other countries and things like that maybe won't change. I expect a lot of that stuff will start going up too. But the commodities that are actually produced in the country are going up like crazy. Okay, the stuff that we grow, the animals that we raise, and the corn price is, of course, going to raise the beef prices also. Okay, because obviously they eat corn too. All right, these are some of the hidden ways that your money is being devalued. We know for a fact and for certain through metrics that it's about 15 to 20% right now currently, and they're looking to print more money. So, what can you do about that? This is where we come into Bitcoin. All right, this is where we come into Bitcoin, and we'll look at the last year. The main reason that Bitcoin is going up is not only because you have these industry investors that are going in and actually investing into Bitcoin as a store of value, as a store of assets, but because the inflation rate and the money is not worth as much. You know, Bitcoin is a global currency. I know it sounds spooky, sounds New World Order. Bitcoin is not run by any organization, even any company. There is a team of developers that have keys that can make tweaks and patches and upgrades to the software code that runs Bitcoin, but even they are limited in what they can do, because when it was initially created, the locks are on there for a lot of things where it really cannot be messed with. A foreign government can't take it over. It's its own thing. And it has tens of thousands of nodes that make it completely decentralized. All right. So this is just the inflation rate to the US dollar is the Bitcoin price rising, and people seeing their need for it, including big businesses and people who know a lot more about money than me. Right? So to protect your assets, we can just look at the monthly. So it's gone up 6% this month, which is actually really low. It was a pretty bad month. So if you know the dollars that are in your bank account, you're losing 15 to 20% just by them sitting there because they don't have as much buying power. You can put them into Bitcoin and retain the buying power of the dollars that you had. This is why people get into gold, where gold is supposed to match the inflation rate. All right. Unfortunately, it doesn't, because JP Morgan, I think it was JP Morgan, they've been manipulating gold so hard they had to pay $100 billion or something to the government for manipulating gold, and then they never stopped manipulating gold. And they're manipulating gold so that people don't know inflation is as bad as it is. Otherwise, gold would be $10,000, $20,000 an ounce. But hey, you can print up as many fake gold certificates as you want to keep the price low. And that's what they're doing. So the new thing that they cannot counterfeit and that cannot be manufactured, it cannot be hoaxed, it cannot be anything like that, is Bitcoin. You cannot make a fake counterfeit Bitcoin. It's impossible. That is how the entire network is designed. So there you go. It's a proof of stake, proof of transaction, proof of worth, proof of value, that every single node, all of those tens of thousands of nodes I was talking about, all of those places have to agree that when you make a transaction, it is a valid transaction with no funny business going on and all the numbers add up. That is how the Bitcoin system works. That is why big businesses are trusting it. More so than the dollar. More so than gold, unless they physically hold the gold. So now, what does that mean for us? Well, if you don't want to the other thing too is if you don't want to have some sort of a bank buy-in like they have in Greece, where the banks close early on Friday and they decide that, well, you're pretty well off. You got $100,000 in your account. We're going to need 50 of that, 50 grand. So we can pay off our people like they did in Greece. That's called a bail-in. You don't have to do that. Once you have this Bitcoin and you own it and you take it off an exchange, it is yours and you're your own bank. And nobody can mess with it. Government comes after you and says, oh, we think you owe us taxes for this and that. Normally they just shut your bank account down. Well, if you're your own bank with your own Bitcoin, there isn't any way anyone can really take it from you. All right. And so there's the advantage of it. Now, it's not what I would call like a private currency. One of the things about Bitcoin is that everything is public and all out on the open, which is a two-way thing. It's like you understand that transactions that are happening with Bitcoin, you can trace them all the way back to the initial first purchase ever made with Bitcoin, because all of that information is stored in the chain. We know who is going where or to what addresses. You don't know the people. You just know that the code address or whoever's wallet. You don't know the person. You just have a wallet address, right? But the transactions in there are open. And that's a negative in the side of people who are into cryptocurrency. We don't want anyone to know any of our stuff and any of our business. That's a valid concern. But you understand the way that we are now. The government, more so actually Google, more so actually Amazon, more so actually these companies, these corporations have all of your data already. When you want to go get a bank account, they need your ID, they need your social security, they need your everything. They need your everything, right? And then they give you a nice little card and you go and you pay everything by swiping a card that assigns numbers and dates and timestamps every single time you do anything. So you get everything with that, the way that it is right now. So, the biggest complaint that people seem to have about Bitcoin is that it's all digital. And it's like, when was the last time you used dollars? I use them religiously. All I use is cash, right? But I am like, the 1 in a million guy out there, right? Most people will swipe their bank card. And it's like, well, what do you care about cash? You're using a bank card. Anyways, this is to be not something that's going to replace everything in your life. It's just look at it like gold, okay? I don't want to lose all of my money to interest, to not interest, but my money being devalued, the currency being devalued. I want to have something safe from banks and government regulation if they decide we need to bail out the banksters again. They lost too much money on GameStop. Oh, man, we got to bail them out, right? Protects you from that. Protects you from quite a lot of things, actually. And it's the way the world is going, and it will make you a decent amount of profit. Okay? It'll make you a decent amount of profit. Now, you say, oh, but Max, I don't have $62,000. Okay. This keeps a lot of people out of cryptocurrencies and a lot of people out of the stock market, is that, in the stock market, you actually, if you wanted to buy Elon Musk garbage Tesla stock, you don't have $800, you can't do it. Well, what they're doing now with cryptocurrencies, well, they always have with cryptocurrencies, but they're also doing it with stocks now through crypto, is allowing you to buy a portion of a Bitcoin or a portion of whatever crypto you want. And there's new exchanges coming out that will allow you to buy a portion of Tesla stock if you really want to throw your money away. Okay. So how it works in the cryptocurrency world is this single Bitcoin is worth $62,850. But this single Bitcoin is made up of like 1 million Satoshis. It's like it's 0.00000001 of a Bitcoin is called a Satoshi. So what they do is, instead of you buying, $500 of a Bitcoin, it ends up being you bought 500 million Satoshis, right? Because that's what you would end up with, and that's the equivalent of your portion of Bitcoin. And it works the same for all these other cryptocurrencies. So I don't have $62,000 in Bitcoin. So I'm not a Bitcoiner. I don't own a Bitcoin. If I would have gotten in about a month sooner, I could have, maybe. I first got into crypto of June of last year, and I was into XRP. And had I actually just went into Bitcoin and left it in Bitcoin, then I'd have 5 times as much money. I don't know. Bitcoin at the time was like maybe $10,000, maybe. And I think I got into it when it was 42 or 44 something. So yeah. And it's not too late. Everyone thinks, oh, it's too late. It's at $10,000. It's too late. Well, it's at 60 now. Okay. 2 weeks. Well, not quite 2 weeks. We'll say 4 weeks to 6 weeks. It was 44,000. Right. And they're like, oh, it's too late, man. It's up to 44,000. Well, now it's at 62. And every projection, I'm going on the low side, is it's going to hit 100K by the end of the year. And that is half what everybody else says. Everybody else says 200K. All right. Now, just if it follows the inflation rate, it'll hit 100K, no problem. It'll probably hit 100K by the end of the summertime. If other things happen, okay, which more investors come on board, Visa and MasterCard get their Bitcoin where you can pay your bill in Bitcoin rolling. They're already doing it, but they're not invested in the Bitcoin yet. So when the payment processing comes online for that, more businesses want to buy up stuff. Elon Musk decides to buy another 100 billion worth of Bitcoin. It's only going to push the price up farther. Okay. Does that mean that it's only going to go up, 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 up? In the long term, yes. That's why you buy it and you hold it. You buy it and you hold it. Because it could certainly drop. You could certainly be like from right here. You went from 58,000 down to 52,000. What happened here? Well, I happen to know that a lot of YouTubers and things have been invested for a long time, and a lot of people take profits, and that's what happens in any market. In any market, you're one of these guys who had bought back here, and it's not really doing a whole lot for years and years and years and years. Or if you bought in on here at even $10,000, once that thing hits $35,000, $40,000, you quadrupled your money. You are going to take some profit. Most people are going to take, if you initially invested $10,000 and you sold it at $40,000, you're probably going to take $10,000 out so you have your initial investment. So therefore, you're not out anything. And that's where you get these drop-offs. And then when it drops off, people are like, ooh, boy, it's a deal. It dropped by 8,000. And then a whole bunch more people come in to try and cash in on the lower price, and then it goes back up. And that's how this is why these markets all look like this up and down. It all looks like a pump and dump, but that's just a natural market cycle because of how people react. Okay? That's just how people react. Now, if you just take it from back here and you're at 10,000 and you just keep holding that thing and not do anything with it, now you're at 6 times your money. Because every time you sell and take profit, you're actually diluting your share. Honestly, you don't ever want to get rid of your Bitcoin. You just want to hold on to that stuff. If people start offering all these services you can pay for in Bitcoin, unless you have a very good reason to use Bitcoin, they're giving you a significant discount. By significant, I mean at least 30 to 40%. Just pay with cash because Federal Reserve dollars are worthless. Okay, people take them now. That's good, but they're losing value as you hand them over to the cashier. Whereas Bitcoin is going up. So, you want to hold on to your Bitcoin. We're going to talk here about, what we're going to do now, how we go about getting it and all that. If you're so inclined. I happen to use Coinbase. It's the largest exchange in America. There's also Binance USA, which Binance itself is the largest worldwide cryptocurrency thing. But in the United States, it really doesn't matter because you have to go through basically like setting up a bank account. They need all this information like a bank account. Then they need your photo ID or a picture of it. And if you want to hook up your bank account to this, you can hook up your bank account to Coinbase. Not every exchange does that. Coinbase is one of the few. I think Binance US also does. But anyways, you have to be on one exchange that you can actually get your money out if you need it. You can buy Bitcoin. You can buy whatever coin. Litecoin. You can buy Ethereum. You can buy whatever you want from any exchange anywhere. But when you want to convert to federal dollars, okay, then of course the government wants to know who you are, just like a bank account, right? So you have to be signed up where you have your bank account somewhere, your ID and all hooked up and be a verified, validated user, right? And that's going to be the same on any exchange in America, every exchange. And it's not a big deal. You fill out the things like you would for a bank account, and you snap a picture of your ID, and then I don't know, 5 minutes, they get back to you and whether or not you're good to go or not. And then, of course, if you're bank, you take your blank check or whatever and put the numbers in. And if your bank is open and it's a smaller branch, like I live in the middle of nowhere, it took like, half hour or something. They do their wire back and forth and you're good to go. And once you're done, you're done. And from that point, Coinbase also has like free stuff they give you if you do trainings or whatever. They all have special offers. Coinbase is the easiest to use that I've found if you just want to buy Bitcoin. You go in here and you say, I want $500 of Bitcoin. You hit buy. It says, how do you want to pay for it? You click on your bank and you type in $500 or $100 or whatever you want and hit do it, and it does it. All right. And then it shows up in your portfolio, obviously, because, I can't show you that without going into my stuff, but it just goes into your portfolio. And if you're talking small amounts, you just leave it on Coinbase and you're done. And think of it as a bank account or a savings account or anything else, more like a savings account. And, Coinbase also does other things where if you want to consistently invest, you can set up where it automatically will take it out of your bank account once a month or something. So you don't even have to think about investing. It's just one of the things that they do. If you're talking about investing, a decent chunk of money, anything probably over $1,000 or $5,000, you'll buy it on the exchange on Coinbase, and you'll take your Bitcoin and you'll send it to your own personal wallet, which could be software on your phone, on your computer, and they make also hardware wallets. And that way the Bitcoin is actually your own bank. You have your own stuff and nothing is left on the exchange. And that protects you from any sort of garbage the government wants to do on the exchange or anything like that. Okay. Because when your Bitcoin is on an exchange, the exchange actually has to have your Bitcoin so that they can trade it. Right. So they own the keys to the Bitcoin that you purchase. And that's just how it works. That's how I think stocks work like that too. If it's on the exchange, they get to kind of do what they want with it. And you have on your account like an IOU Bitcoin. But if you take that Bitcoin and send it to your personal wallet, now it's yours. Now no one can take it. Nothing can happen to it. It's safe and secure. They call it cold storage. And Coinbase offers a cold storage in here, but I don't see that really does anything. And you don't worry about Coinbase getting hacked. They're like the largest, they're the largest crypto thing in America, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, that's really all there is to it. Now, once you're set, like I said, once you're set up on Coinbase, you really only need to do this when you need to get money out. But if you just want to purchase Bitcoin, you can purchase Bitcoin from a lot of different places without entering in any information. You can just use your credit card. And then once you buy it from there, you just send it to your wallet, or you can send it to your Coinbase account. I've had to buy cryptocurrencies that aren't listed on, you can see you can't trade all of these ones on Coinbase. I've had to open up accounts on 3 or 4 different exchanges just to buy the coins that I want. And I have financed them by sending Bitcoin to those accounts so that I can swap them into something else. Once something is on an exchange, you have dollars or you have Bitcoin or you have whatever. If I have $1,000 in Bitcoin, I wanted to buy Ethereum, I could take $500 of my Bitcoin and convert it into Ethereum right here on Coinbase by the click of a button. There's literally a conversion tab where they just ask you how much you want to do, and they make it real simple, and the fees are very, very, very minimal. Almost to the point of nothing. The fees only come in when you want to convert your Bitcoin and let's say Bitcoin goes up to 600,000 and you put $1,000 in it. So, you've got $100,000. And so you got this 100 grand, you want to take 50 grand out. you then have to go through Coinbase and say, okay, I want to take out 50 grand. And then Coinbase is going to tack on there. Well, we're a greedy American company and we gotta make sure you're good to go with Uncle Sam and his tax policies. And, we gotta, do all this fines and whatnot and fees. And yeah, that's what happens. You're converting from a digital currency, which isn't really taxable. You can't tax it. And once you go into those Federal Reserve notes, then yes, then we need to know who we are so we can get our stuff and all that. And that's how it goes, That's just how it goes. Nobody likes it, but hey, it's not like if Bitcoin went up 10x, it's not like you couldn't afford to pay out on that. And as far as financing the account, I think it's like if you put money in, it's like $1 for under $100 or under $300, and up to like $5,000, it's like $3 for their processing fee or whatever. It's like nothing, but that's all there is to it. And if you don't like Coinbase, you can sign it. The process is the same to go up to Binance, which most people who are like the pros all use Binance. Again, you have to go to the US one because we have special restrictions. But there's a few different exchanges. Just that Coinbase is probably, if all you want to do is look at Bitcoin and kind of play around with stuff, this is the easiest thing to do. Of course, a lot of people, the pros don't like it for a variety of reasons. But, if you're not day trading and you're not doing anything but you just want to hold on to some Bitcoin, there's nothing wrong with Coinbase. So, yeah, we'll do that. And as far as getting into the idea of these Bitcoin just being digital money and it's not really anything and it's not really worth anything and all of these, you get a lot of people who are just scared to try anything new or scared to change or whatever. It's like, you guys realize that the dollar system and pretty much every country's monetary system is all digital nonsense. There is no value. There is no nothing backing the dollar bill. As a matter of fact, the more dollar bills you have in your pocket, you have a larger representation of debt that you owe to Senior Rothschild. All right. That's all. Those are called Federal Reserve debt notes. Debt notes. That's representation of debt. So that's the system that we're currently in. And as far as something like Bitcoin's a new world order system, and it's like, well, yeah, it's a global system that is new and it has some order in it, and it's better than the one that's currently going as far as financial. And it's not run by any government or any orange man or any senile old fool or the Federal Reserve or Heir Rothschild or the Queen of England or any of those people. It's run by nobody. All right. And entrepreneurs and, people like that are into the mining and the exchanging, and it is the people that give any currency value. Gold is only valuable just because people say it's valuable. It really isn't that valuable. Back in the day, it was this wonder metal that didn't rust and tarnish and all these things. And, today we use a little tiny bit of it for electronical devices, but we actually have better metals now for a wider variety of purposes. Gold is really kind of just a store of value. There isn't too much utility to it. So you're looking at, you want to buy something, you want to buy a house for $300,000, you're going to get out 50 pounds of gold and go wheelbarrow it up to the closing and say, here's my gold. Or are you going to log into your computer and just send some Bitcoin? Even Bitcoin, people will say that Bitcoin is slow. It takes like, a day or something for your Bitcoin to go through in a large purchase. But it's like, well, do you realize that buying something like a house or even buying something on your credit card, the payment takes about a month to process because we use the SWIFT system that's been around since the 80s. Bitcoin's quite a bit faster than that. And, there's all these other coins to play around with as far as those things go. But as far as a store of value and how to do it, this is what you do. And it would behoove you guys to go buy some. And, you know, it's 63,000. It's an all-time high right now. And yeah, you know, tomorrow it could go down to 55,000, and it doesn't matter, guys. It doesn't matter, because another few days after that, it's going to be up to 70,000. All right. Just look at it like that. Buy some, put it up there and go, yee-haw, I got me some Bitcoin. And only do like $100 if you're scared of it. And then you give it a 1 or 2 months. And when that Bitcoin is up by another 30%, you'll be looking at your $130 in your account. And you go, you know, if I would have put the $10,000 in my savings account into Bitcoin, I'd have I'd have $13,000 instead of $10,000. That's what you're going to think to yourself. That's what happened to me. It's like, wow. There's, you know, no reason. Obviously, you don't want to put every nickel that you have into Bitcoin. You need to have cash reserves, but, you know, half. If you have $10,000 in the bank, why wouldn't you put 5 into Bitcoin? I wouldn't understand why you wouldn't do that. Most people do the 20% rule, where they'll have 20% into stock, 20% into cryptocurrencies, 20% into gold and silver, precious metals, and 20% into cash. I mean, those people have a lot of money, though. I don't have enough to divvy it up that much. What, I'm going to put $10 into Bitcoin? I'm going to put, you know, how much is the $5? Can you cut that silver dollar in half? Can you cut that one in half? I have to make this last so I have 20% in everything, right? So I'm not that guy. So I'm in the Bitcoin and a few other things. And, you know, like I said, some people had some questions about that. So I thought I would cover and explain what I could of it. And this is probably like really, really long at this point as I've been rambling. But I do want to play Michael Saylor. So if anybody knows who this guy is, pretty much anytime this guy talks, you should listen. He's a big Bitcoin proponent who has been a CEO of companies for a long time. It's MicroStrategy right now, but he's been a CEO since like the 80s. Very, very long time, very educated guy. And he was one of the first guys to get into Bitcoin with his company, where he took basically everything that the company was worth, all the cash that the company had, and put it into Bitcoin. And of course, everyone was kind of upset with him until he made the company like 20 billion or something like that. He put in 4 billion at when it was 20,000 or 24,000. He bought $4 billion in Bitcoin. And now, of course, Bitcoin is worth 63,000. So, yeah, however much money, I think everyone's pretty happy with this guy now. And he talks a lot about people that are, you know, poo-pooing him. He does all sorts of interviews about what he thinks about this and that, and, you know, people trying to dig him for investing into Bitcoin. And he has a lot of very good things to say. We're going to end with watching a brief little thing on him for a couple of minutes, and I think that will be it.
And that is the survival of Bitcoin. When you look at some strategies or some companies that are developing alternative coins and or alternative blockchain technology out there, what are your thoughts on potentially, could Bitcoin ever be replaced by some other crypto?
I think there's about zero chance of that.
Really?
Bitcoin's
Okay.
$1 trillion digital monetary network. Bitcoin would be the most successful thing you've ever seen in your life. Period.
That's a big one.
For example, it took Microsoft 44 years to be $1 trillion. It took Apple 42 years to be $1 trillion network. It took Amazon 24 years to be $1 trillion network. It took Google 22 years to be $1 trillion network. It took Bitcoin 12 years to become $1 trillion network. And there's nothing else.
Right.
There is no other $1 trillion network. So what you have is a decentralized digital network, which is in essence transforming analog money or analog assets to digital assets. It's global. It's running everywhere on the earth, and it has been growing. It was growing at 200% a year. Try to remember when Amazon or Apple or Google grew at 200% a year.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
It's growing at 200% a year for a decade until March of 2020. And in March of 2020, that monetary fire that was burning at 200% a year hit the pandemic, and the rate of currency expansion increased by a factor of 3. We went from expanding the money supply at 7% a year to expanding the money supply at 24% a year. We're looking at the money supply expanding at 15% a year or more for the next 4 to 8 years. So how do you feed a monetary fire? And the answer is you pour money on it.
Right.
And so the macroeconomics are driving this network to grow faster. The network, it accelerated. It was growing 200% a year. Now it's growing 400+% a year. Okay, again, give me an example of anything this scale that ever grew 400% a year. And in terms of inertia, the $1 trillion is $1 trillion of monetary energy. That means you've got more than 100 million people that have $1 trillion invested in this brand. This is the only brand in the history of the world. It's $1 trillion brand, right? It's like think about the value of Coca-Cola as the brand. In the minds of 100 million plus people, you have this idea and it's worth $1 trillion. How are you going to rip that idea out of people's heads? 100 million people, thousands and thousands of companies, huge amounts of energy, a huge amount of inertia. This is the base layer digital asset network that they're all focusing upon. And so as they build their technology around it, like Square and PayPal, and as they invest in it, like Tesla,
right,
and as the message spreads, that's a lot more energy and a lot more momentum than any company or any other brand or any other idea I've seen, right?
Yeah,
So-
for sure. Yeah, I think the growth is definitely, unprecedented in terms of how it's happened. I think what some people are looking at, including companies like an Algorand, which, Vasily over there, his approach is to try to solve some of the issues that Bitcoin does have. If they were, or companies like him and like that group, were to be able to actually get into the layer of creating a crypto model that starts to be a little bit more decentralized, because
Okay, so what we're talking about here is Algorand is another cryptocurrency. I do own some. And yeah, a lot of these cryptos are going to go up because it's like the .com. It's sort of like the .com bubble in that there's a lot of shit coins out there, okay? There are people that will create coins just to try and get, people to buy them and then, fold up shop. Now, you're not going to see any of those, I would expect, on something like Coinbase, right? Those are pretty well vetted, but if you want to get in on the good deals and you want to make the gambling purchase, right, you can't buy, the vetted coins on in a lot of these places. You have to get them. If you want to get something when it's 10 cents before it's out on a regular exchange, you're not going to get it on Coinbase, right? So there's a lot of garbage coins out there, which is why I say go to Bitcoin. Now, the question here that was presented to Michael Saylor is, what about if something comes and, takes the place of Bitcoin? There is no competitor to Bitcoin, by the way. You look at the market, the people that say like, oh, Ethereum is gonna do this, that, and the other thing, and these other altcoins that are getting larger up there. It's like Bitcoin devours them. Bitcoin is 30 times the size of the next coin, which is Ethereum. It's huge.
Because his argument, I don't know if you've ever listened to him. He was on the Lex podcast here recently, and his argument was basically that Bitcoin is starting, even though it did start out as a decentralized mechanism, it's starting to centralize, like what most of all types of currency and or technology starts to do in terms of centralizing. You had mentioned ASICs, which is kind of the scenario of where this already, just because of pure hardware requirements to get into mining and starting to move into this, that it's naturally becoming a centralized potential currency. If it does become a more and more centralized currency, because this is still just 2021, we're talking 2030, 2040 here before we really could see the potential of this currency, it could be controlled by some nation states or potentially just a handful of miners. What are your thoughts on that?
I think 10,000 companies or 10,000 projects have attempted to displace Bitcoin. I think they've all failed.
Yeah.
The only way you're going to be successful with another crypto asset network is if you target a totally different use case than base treasury asset. So if it's a differentiated thing with a different market segment, a different use case, then perhaps. But in fact, the market has spoken. I'll say it again. In the history of the human race, we've never had a $1 trillion digital monetary network. It's the most successful thing humanity has created. It is creating value and gaining market adoption faster than anything that we can point our finger at in the history of the human race. So, there's 100,000 entrepreneurs that would like to be Google or like to displace Facebook or like to displace iOS, and they're all going to have this is a better thing. But at the end of the day, if you're staring at a $1 trillion network that is more successful than everything you've seen in your life, that's growing faster than anything on earth, that's being adopted everywhere in the world, and you're going to then opt to ignore it in favor of a project in somebody's garage. I mean, it just seems irrational.
And that is the argument with the altcoins. And a lot of people there's people that are down on Bitcoin for a variety of different reasons. It's like, oh, it's antiquated and it's slow and it's this and it's that. Well, the market has spoken. And what he was saying is about this $1 trillion thing that the people created. Okay. Bitcoin, of course, is a programmer or a team of programmers that are actually anonymous. Who are people who are upset about the bank bailouts in 2008. And the code or the name for the group or the person is Satoshi Nakamoto. And of course, there's all kinds of conspiracies on all that stuff. It doesn't really matter. The point being is that there is no company behind Bitcoin, right? There is no company that says this is going to be the future of Bitcoin. This is where our targeted demographics are for Bitcoin. No. They put it out there and said, hey, here's a new currency. And the people took it and started using it. And the people are using it in all these different ways. And all these people, these innovators are like, oh, wow, if Bitcoin did this, that would be something. I know I'm going to make my own coin that does this. And someone else says, I'm going to make a coin that does this. And they go, wow, what great technology. And everything is built out of the people. It's not a Microsoft product. It's not a Google product. It's not a CIA product. It's not an NSA product, because they wouldn't have designed this thing without a ton of backdoors if it was those guys. All right. So what it is a currency that is actually built by the people and how they use it. And it's a $1 trillion network. And there isn't anything else that even comes close. Elon Musk very recently purchased his 100 billion of Bitcoin or whatever with the Tesla company. And he made more in a week holding Bitcoin than he had the entire existence of Tesla on Bitcoin. Now, granted, of course, the market went up by $10,000 or $15,000 because he made that purchase, and a lot of other investors went into it because, well, if Elon's doing it, then I got to do it too. And that's how the market works, why it goes up and down, because people are people. But buy the stuff, hold on to it. Listen to what Mike Saylor says. Listen to what Max Kaiser says when it comes to Bitcoin and what's going on with it, and just kind of ignore all the garbage talk. Ignore the mark of the beast crap. I mean, that's that stuff comes from people who don't know anything about Bitcoin. And Bitcoin does not compare to any other cryptocurrency out there. Okay, there's a lot of cryptos. There's thousands upon thousands upon thousands of cryptocurrencies. As Michael Saylor said, some coming from a group of teens in their garage or whatever. Doesn't mean that the crypto that they're making is bad. It just means the market has spoken. Bitcoin does certain things that people value. All right, and it has a use case. It is being used right now as a store of value. And it's making people a lot of money. And countries all over the world will take it. More and more businesses are taking it. Okay. It is a currency that protects your sweat equity, where your dollars and from your paycheck are withering away at the rate of 20% a year. All right. You don't have to believe me. This is Michael Saylor, a guy who's been a CEO, has got multiple degrees, and you think he's even an aerospace engineer or something. Yeah, they ain't going to let this guy would be fired if he took his company's $4 billion and threw it into Bitcoin and people didn't agree with him for doing it, you know? So that's what we have about that. I hope I've answered as many questions as I possibly could. I realize this is a long video, kind of a rambly video. And I guess if there's got any other questions, put them in down below on a comment. Leave 2 or 3 if you have to, or check it to make sure it shows up because YouTube deletes them constantly. And apparently everybody, you always have to say, I'm not doing financial advice or something like that. This is my opinion. I am me, and this is what I am doing, buying Bitcoin. Because, yeah, I don't think I can live that great on UBI with the cost of a steak being $45, right? All right, so with that, we're going to be out of here.